All right. When in doubt, go with your grandkids.
That's true.
Oh, my kids, my grandkids aren't quite there yet. 4.5 doesn't qualify.
I don't know, at the rate they pick up technology these days,
That's
Judge.
true. Well, they spent the night. I left her on her iPad when I came to work this morning.
No,
All
I'm
right,
not
Mr. and
here.
Mrs. Marchand, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sarah and Tim, just kind of plant yourself. Don't go right in front of an open window. It's hard to see you. Oh, this will be good. Okay, we're going to call the matter of Larry White versus Timothy Marchand and Sarah Marchand. Mr. White is present. Mr. and Mrs. Marchand are present. This is file 221343. Also present is Jenna Bowder, who is in our next case. So I'm going to advise you both. Marchand's is a termination of tenancy. The Bowder's is a non-payment of rent. You have the right to obtain counsel for representation in this matter. If you cannot afford an attorney, a legal aid attorney may be available to help you. You have a right to a trial by a jury or by the court. If the action is for non-payment of rent, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services or other agency may be able to provide emergency housing assistance. You do not need a judgment to receive that assistance, and summons and complaint from the court case are sufficient. If a plaintiff is agreeable, the Citizens Mediation Services, Inc. may be available as a possible source of case resolution. If both parties are agreeable to mediation, you can contact the court to set that up. If you reach an agreement with the plaintiff and a consent judgment is entered by the court, you would waive the rights listed above, but have the following additional rights. The judgment may not be enforced until 3 business days had passed. You could move to set aside the judgment within these 3 days if you misunderstood what you consented to or what you were waiving. Your motion to set aside the judgment would be set for a landlord-tenant hearing. However, if the judge does not find in your favor, the original judgment would stand. Meg, this case has got some wrinkles to it. This is filed as a termination of tenancy matter. Mr. and Mrs. White filed to terminate tenancy. However, you have a lease, which is from August 1st, 2023 to August 1st of 2024. So you're in a lease period. So you filed a termination of tenancy for not paying the rent. When they have a lease, they have a right to pay the rent. So that is an issue, unless you allege some other rationale for terminating the tenancy, which you haven't done. I've handled this apartment a number of times over the years. I'm sort of dumbfounded that Mr. and Mrs. Marchand, you would pay $1,350 a month to rent this apartment.
Right, yeah.
And secondly, how you thought you could afford $1,350 a month. I've handled a number of evictions out of this very place over the years. So let's break this down. Mr. White, you filed this as a termination of tenancy. Why are you terminating their tenancy?
Well, I made the mistake of listening to my heart instead of my head, but they came in saying that they could pay, and they had a caseworker, and then I guess they didn't meet those requirements to get that money or whatever. Mrs. Marchand said she was disabled. I let them in on they've only paid $500 since they've been there. I put $60,000 into the apartment and redid the whole house. I put a lot of time and money. So it's not the same house that you remember.
Yeah, I
Well,
think it
I'm
is.
glad to hear
I think
that.
it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, so you've been there since August. You've made one payment of $500. But you didn't do this right, Mr. White.
Okay.
If it's a non-payment of rent, you have to say how much the rent is. You filed to terminate their tenancy for not paying the rent. You can't do that when they have a lease. Their lease is in effect from August 1st of 2023 to August 1st of 2024. So they have a lease. The rent is $1,350 per month. Mr. and Mrs. Marchand, how you ever thought you were going to be able to pay $1,350 per month rent is
Because
a mystery to me.
when he
Go ahead.
rented it to us, he said it was only gonna be 1,200. And with mine and Tim's
Wait.
both check, with everything included. Well, then he brought the lease here to the apartment and raised it to 1,350. And then now he gave us papers that we have to go share half of the electric.
Well, all right. Well, so is that why you're just paying no rent at all? You've been there since
No,
August?
no,
We're just in over our
we
head.
got in a bind. I've been in the hospital with my back. I'm fixing to go have another back surgery. We got into a bind and
All right, well,
it wasn't our
Mr.
fault.
White, how much is the rent behind through October?
Minus the 500 they paid, it's $4,900
Through October?
with deposit.
All right,
Well,
well, the
what
deposit is
about us
separate.
cleaning, what about us cleaning this place?
All right, just a minute. Mr. White, you could use some legal advice.
Sure.
Or you should at least join the St. Joe County Landlord Tenant Association. I'm not sure how they do things in LaGrange County, but you're doing this on your own and you've got 1 foot in one bucket and 1 foot in the other. It's a non-payment of rent case. You didn't file it as a non-payment of rent case. But Mr. and Mrs. Marchand have been there since August. They have paid $500, nothing for September and nothing for October, and probably nothing coming from November.
And also, he didn't include on my caseworker sending 500 too.
I
Say
never
that
received
again?
I've never received anything from a caseworker.
Well, that ain't what she's saying.
Well, I'd be happy to show proof that a payment was sent.
No,
I did
All
not
right,
receive anything.
so,
And-
Sarah, we're gonna continue this matter.
If Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
She's moved
Yes.
another family in. She's moved dog in. They've ran their water
We got no
so that
dog.
it causes trouble with the
We
other
don't have a
below.
dog. We take care of a dog.
Stop. I'll let you speak when he's done.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Does the lease say no pets? Mr. White?
Yes, but there's an extra fee for a pet, and a pet was never spoken about.
All right.
There was
Now,
another $25 a month for that.
Mr. and Mrs. Marchand, you're a very poor tenant risk. You move somebody else in there allegedly, you got a dog in there, there's water issues, you're not paying the rent, you don't have the ability to pay the rent, and you're complaining about not getting credit for cleaning the apartment.
We got another place on the. We got another place on the third.
All right, have you made any effort to try to find another place to live?
Yes, but we can't
All right.
move into it until the 3rd.
All right, that might help this. I'm gonna continue this matter to next Friday, 10/27 at 10:40.
Now you ask him if we come up with the rent, that if we could stay.
Yes,
I do not
and
want.
that's-
I will do what the court says. I do not
All
wish
right, well,
them to
what the
continue
court
as my
says
tenants.
is you have a lease
Yes,
and you allege they're not paying their rent. And they have a right to pay the rent to come into compliance with the lease. If you wish to terminate their tenancy, you have to say a reason why you're terminating their tenancy. you've invested $60,000 in this investment. You might want to invest a couple $100 in having a lawyer help you with this.
Certainly.
You may not wish to have them as a tenant, but they have a lease. So yes, Mr. and Mrs. Marchand. Now you claim that DHS paid $7,500. Obviously, if Mr. White had received it, he would have acknowledged it. So
Yes, Your Honor.
but you guys can't afford to live here.
No.
And so maybe it's a much nicer apartment than it ever was. $1,350 is almost at the ceiling of St. Joseph County rents. There's not, I have a house on Thunderbird Drive on the lake that rents for $1,200 a month. So these are very high rents for our area. If you lived in New York City, you could rent a doghouse for $1,350 per month, but you can't afford to live there. So if you're planning to move, that'll be great.
Yes,
so
we are.
You will get 10 days from October 27th. So you would have until November 6th to move.
Okay.
Now, if you do move before that, you don't even need to come. When you move, you need to turn in your keys and give your forwarding address in writing within 4 days of your moving.
Right.
But you probably won't be out by next Friday. So we'll address this further next Friday morning. Have your grandson help you get logged in again, and we'll address it further. But if they get what they ask for, I'll try to pound a square peg into a round hole and call this a non-payment of rent case. You would have until November 6th, which is 10 days from October 27th to move out. So if you have a new place by the 3rd, maybe the problem will take care of itself. Now, that doesn't include money damages, Mr. White. Once they move out, you can sue them for money damages, either as part of this case, except I don't think you paid the fee for supplemental damages, or in small claims court.
I was just trying to get it re-rented.
Yeah.
Well, I don't blame you a bit.
Friggin'
If you can get $1,350, I guess more power to you. But as soon as I looked at this, I thought this was a desperation for the Marshands to find a place to live. I don't know how they thought they were going to be able to pay this much rent. And I don't think DHS would pay this high of a rent, but we'll address it further the next Friday at 10:40 a.m. So I'll see everybody then. Do you have any questions, Mr. and Mrs. Marchand?
No.
No, thank you.
All right, I'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, Matt, why don't you go ahead and place your appearance on the record?
Thank you. This is appearance by Matthew Davidson on behalf of the plaintiff, Lorenzo, but he goes by Larry White.
Ms. Holderman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, I don't want you to smoke while we're in this hearing.
I know that. I'm not.
Okay. We were here last week on October 20th, and Mr. White, your landlord, was here, and there were a number of issues. This was filed as a termination of tenancy, I believe. They want you to move. The lease expired. I think you only made one payment, and then you moved in another family, they allege, and then you moved in some pets, and you indicated you were trying to find a place to move to.
The
Have you had
third,
any
yeah.
success?
Yeah, we
You
got
had
a
any
place. We
success?
can't move. Can't
All
move
right,
in
very-
until the third.
Till when?
The third.
Oh, this will work out fine.
It'd be like, cause the 3rd, I think, is on Friday, and then the weekend, it'd be that following Monday.
All right, well, I'm gonna give you until that date, which is November 6th, to move. No money judgment is entered here. Now, when you do move, you need to turn in your keys and give your forwarding address in writing. Don't give me the address, but what town are you moving to?
Sturgis.
Well, you're certainly people of St. Joe County. You've lived in Three Rivers, White Pigeon, Centerville, Sturgis. Anyway, when you do move, you need to turn in the keys and give your forwarding address. I'm not
Yeah.
ordering right now that you pay any money. If there is a hearing regarding money, it will be on a future date, either in a small claims case or as part of this case. But at this point, they simply want you to vacate.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No.
All right, very good. Hopefully you're in there, you're out by the 6th, turn in the keys, and I'm glad you found some place to go.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Anything to add, Mr. Davidson?
No, thank you, Your Honor. I did file an amended complaint and it was served on them by Officer Morse. So
we got it.
they're aware of the appearance in the amended complaint.
All right, I was aware of it too, so I don't know why I didn't know that you weren't in here. But all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Honor.
This is an emergency hearing in a landlord-tenant matter. It's entitled Lorenzo Larry White versus Tim Marchand and Sarah Marchand for a property at 106 East Chicago Road. Mr. Matthew Davidson is here on behalf of the plaintiff, Larry White. He is here by Zoom. Timothy Marchand and Sarah Marchand are not present. This case has got quite some history. It was filed as a non-payment of rent case. I think it was first filed, yes, it was always filed as a non-payment of rent. The rent was substantial. An amended complaint was filed in October. We did find that there was a lease. We had a couple of hearings in the matter. And the problem was it started out as half termination of tenancy and half non-payment of rent. We had a hearing on October 20th.
There was an amended complaint filed.
Yes, there was. That was for non-payment of rent. Then we continued the matter until October 27th. The defendants contended they had put a lot of money into the house. At any rate, the court ordered as of October 27th that the defendants were going to move by November 3rd.
Yeah, they had asked for some extra time. And I think
I
as it
gave
turned
them,
out, it,
I gave them, they said they're gonna move by the 3rd. I gave them until November 6th. So at that point, Mr. White was entitled to obtain a writ of eviction, which he did not do. The Marchands came in here in a panic. On November 23rd. Well, they actually came in here on the 28th. On this date, I'll read their letter. On or about 5 or 6:30, Larry White returned.
that's the second one.
The second one. He took the door off the house. The first one was on November 22nd. Anyway, and they alleged that they did some other things that violate the landlord-tenant lockout law. There was no writ of eviction at that time. Mr. Wright identified him. He then stated he took off the exterior door and was not putting it back on. We went down the stairs and the exterior door was not on the doorway and the cold air was just blowing in. He also stated that he informed the authorities that he had every right to do what he was doing and could not do anything about it. It was his house and he wanted us out.
Hey, Your Honor.
Yes.
I would object to any of this other than stating the concept for why this hearing got scheduled, because extrajudicial judicial statements are not admissible unless they're relevant. And I don't even know what the point is all post-judgment stuff. I mean, even if it was against the rules. So I just want to make it clear that if we have a hearing on it, but I don't want to accept this as true because my client
I'm not
disputes it.
not giving it as truth of the matter asserted. I'm
Thanks.
giving it to show why we scheduled this hearing.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Go ahead.
Mr. Wright refused. He also shut the power off for a few minutes, but turned it back on. Anyway, so they come in with a panic on the 22nd. The plaintiff was eligible to get a writ of eviction on or after November 6th, but as of November 22nd, they had not got a writ of eviction. So they wrote a second letter indicating he put the door back on. So I set on their behalf this emergency hearing regarding an alleged violation of the landlord-tenant lockout law. In the meantime, Mr. Davison today, November 29th, has filed for the writ of eviction. So I set this on short notice at disconvenience to Mr. White and Mr. Davidson. Then at about 2:22, Mrs. Marchand called and said, well, we're going to be a little late for court. We are going to get our car out of impound in Schoolcraft. So they weren't even at Schoolcraft yet. So it isn't a situation where they're going to be here in the next few minutes. It probably won't be here till sometime after 3 o'clock. And so this hearing was at their behalf and they're not here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm not going to hear their issues. No emergency hearing regarding the lockout law. What I just read was not a finding that Mr. White violated the lockout law. It was their allegation. There's two sides to every story, and I haven't heard his side, but I don't need to because they're not even here. Mr. Davidson has filed for the writ of eviction, which I'm going to sign effective today. Mr. White, I don't know what you did or didn't do, and I'm not sure why you didn't get the writ right after November 6th, that you wanted them out that badly. But just for future purposes, you can't do that sort of thing. I'm not contending that you did, but you can't remove the door, you can't shut off the power, you can't interfere with their tenancy. What you can get is a writ of eviction, and the sheriff comes and puts them out. So
yes, sir.
I've signed a writ of eviction.
I agree, Your Honor.
All right. Take advice from your lawyer. He's done this for a long time. Get the writ first. Let the sheriff come do it.
Yeah, that's why I put the door back on.
All right. Now it's 2:30 on a Thursday, a Wednesday. The Sergeant Morris isn't going to do the writ today, but he may well do it tomorrow. So when they show up, whatever time they come rolling in here for their emergency hearing, I'll have the clerk provide them with a copy of the writ of eviction that we've received from Mr. Davidson. They have till sometime tomorrow till the sheriff comes and puts them out, but I'm not gonna dance around with this anymore. Mr. Davidson, I've signed your writ. I'll send you out. You can get a copy for your records and we'll serve them if and when they show up here this afternoon.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Yes. Do I need to continue? I got
Don't
it.
do anything. You need to come here. Well, you got it. They brought the $15 and paid for the writ. They'll provide it to the sheriff and he will go about executing it.
I'll call you, Larry.
Okay,
I'll
I
call
can
you.
leave.
We'll talk about it.
I can leave the meeting. I need to catch a plane.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay.
Basically, here, I was gonna tell the court,
Thank
that's why he's not.
Yes, that's what I
He's
understand. And
over
I
there.
understand I set it on short notice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's see what time they actually
You give it
come.
to me?
Good afternoon, everyone who is saying good afternoon. We're gonna start our landlord tenant docket a little early. We're gonna start right at 1. And we have 10 or so cases to deal with this afternoon. For those asking, we had a hearing on a termination the other day. The people were supposed to be here at 2 o'clock. They did arrive about 3 o'clock. And the bailiffs gave them the order of eviction. Which was disappointing because I set the hearing specifically for them. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Let me get this set up and we'll begin.